That's ridiculous. I'm not a video game character. I'm a real-life person with dreams and feelings. All right, fine. I'm a video game guy. I can't hurt him. He's too awesome. I'm on a roll.
Increase the pace through killing.
Ooh-wee, everybody take your goddamn seats. We're looking at every version of the Simpsons game from 2007. The game that came out on everything. Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo DS, PS3, PS2, PS1, Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, PSP, and yes, it's all true, the TV said so.
The Simpsons game. Coming this fall to every platform ever made.
Did anyone else actually get pissed off when seeing that shit? Like, don't joke about that. Don't play with me. You don't think I'd gladly let 1,000,000 yellow cartridges of Donkey Kong die in service of a Simpsons game 64? You have no idea who you're dealing with, buddy. Rather than tying into the movie, this one released a few months after, and with that title, The Simpsons Game, it was meant to evoke being the definitive release. Like those decades of other Simpsons games dating back to the arcades and NES. No, that's not the Simpsons game. That's not the Simpsons game. That one where you kick the shit out of Ralphie and cop like 1,000,000 views on YouTube in 2007 for some reason. That's not the Simpsons game. No, these are the Simpsons game. For real, released on Xbox 360, PS3, PSP, PS2, Wii, and Nintendo DS. All with these different cover variants, which, that's so cool. So many cross-gen games were releasing on practically every console and handheld they could at that time, and it was nice to finally get a game that actually acknowledged it. Most of the covers featuring Homer being attacked in some way. That is, except the Xbox 360 version, which features a triumphant Homer going, "Woohoo!" It was almost like they were saying, this is it. This is the premier version of the game you have to play. Which is precisely why I decided to start with the PS2 version of all things. I guess I'm just too much of a sucker for these late-release PS2 games. Like in late 2007, of course, it wasn't out of the ordinary to get a PS2 port, but it was just still always a pleasant surprise to see what was generally considered as a PS3 and Xbox 360 game still managed to end up with a PS2 release, even if it's a licensed one. But fear not, we're going to look at every version of the Simpsons game to see just how all these differed and how much managed to stay intact between each one. Unlike something like Simpsons Hit and Run, which went for a straightforward 3D rendition of the world and the characters, the Simpsons game goes for a more cel-shaded look, meant to mimic the line work of the show. It works mostly well. Some of the lines can be inconsistent and make for this weird mesh, but on PS2, you play this on a CRT, and honestly, it looks pretty nice. You start out in this chocolate factory with Homie, where you can fatty fall down the chocolate river like Augustus Gloop. Combat and platforming are pretty standard, with a double jump and a single combo attack. I guess my brain's a little too hardwired for Hit and Run, and I was wondering where Homer's big butt stomp was. But he does have a big burp attack, and oh my god, you get to roll around as a big fat Katamari Homer. You can smash through everything in your path and make other fatties fall down as a big gauntlet. It's simple, smooth brain fun.
Oh, who's the idiot?
You, sir, are a monster.
I'm a funny ball, and I can eat and never get full. It's like a dream come true. This is the happiest and saddest moment of my entire life.
Across all the versions, the humor in this one's pretty damn on point. Even some of the more throwaway lines during combat had me giggling.
We get in trouble. Hide in my fat folds.
I'd rather just get killed, thank you.
It's a very meta narrative, with the Simpsons family realizing they're in a video game and trying to get to the bottom of their newfound powers and why their world has plunged into total chaos.
The Simpsons game. This is so weird. The only Simpsons game I can think of is the one where we all pretend Dad isn't an alcoholic.
This one's just chock full of a bunch of memes and video game references. There wasn't even a hot second where the Simpsons game was the closest we had to Mario and Sonic in a game together before they went to Beijing on Wii the next month.
I look forward to the embrace of the death.
There's a ton of parody posters, references, you storm the factories of EA. Marge and Lisa end up on Grove Street and get in the middle of an itchy and scratchy gang war.
The only good rap is Saran Wrap. Pumping ass in their camps.
There's even references to games that weren't even out yet, like Spore and Dead Space. Look, there's even one of them skibbity toilets.
Mr. Spokoro has risen from his banishment in the underworld.
Not every reference has aged well. A lot of them range from prescient to very of its time, or even a little dated by 2007 standards.
Ah, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Hey, less references, more mopping.
You gotta remember, this was a time where just saying all your base belonged to us was like the funniest shit ever to some people.
All you Simpsons all belong to us!
But that's the thing, video game references still had this inherent niche quality to them. Seeing stuff like this in a major Simpsons game was really novel. It was like, wow, a mainstream entity like The Simpsons is making tons of references to video game culture and different titles beyond, you know, just your typical Pac-Man and Space Invader callbacks. Which, like, yeah, they're here.
You trash that street trash, Mom!
But to see San Andreas, a 3-year-old game at the time, get satirized, seeing shoutouts to newer titles, and poking fun at the publisher of your own game was a really big deal. Especially when you didn't typically see licensed games with this kind of attention to detail and meta humor. I don't know, all I'm trying to say is it's really hard to pinpoint just how pleasant of a surprise this was for its time.
Why do you marketing people always just show cutscenes and commercials? Come back when you have better AI.
The second level of the game introduces character switching, with you swapping between Homer and Bart. And Bart's sections are pretty much a Simpsonized Arkham Asylum, with you being able to glide around as Bartman and zipline between platforms, all while having some fun father-son beatdown time.
That's my boy!
This game was clearly built for the 2-player mode with these LEGO Star Wars-esque co-op puzzles, but when you're all alone and sleep in a race car bed with your PS2 copy of the Simpsons game, what are you gonna do? Bart's also got his signature bad cool kid 90s slingshot, and it was here I kept wondering just how exactly was this gonna play out in the Wii version. Like, it was pretty much a given that any Wii port of a game was gonna just be the PS2 version with some motion controls, and yep, that's exactly what we got here. With some additions like actually being able to do progressive scan, making for a much sharper image. Of course, you do get some motion controls peppered in here, things like shaking the Wiimote and nunchuck for your special attacks or for ball homie slams, but not really anything used for accuracy. You're still Z-targeting to use Bart's slingshot and whatnot. You do get these exclusive Wii moments that show up in levels every now and then. First one being this Fight Night parody, Bite Night, where you're Homer in an eating contest and trying to avoid eating your vegetables. A pretty simple minigame. And the other is a riff on Pilot Wings, Bart Wings, that was the best I could come up with, where you glide through smoke rings with the Wiimote. It's only these two, so don't get super excited. But it is pretty neat that the devs still found time to make use of some of the Wii's uniqueness for this one. At this point, I was ready to take on the Xbox 360 and PS3 ports, the premier, crispy, clean HD versions of the game. Okay, now looking at all these versions graphically, the cel-shaded style really looks best here. For a time, there was a distinct look to The Simpsons in 3D. That stuck for over a decade, and while I do have a soft spot for the bug-eyed, chewy-looking early CGI Simpsons family, the animations and visual style of the characters and environments here feel so seamless and like a perfect translation from the show. For its time, this was probably one of the best interpretations of 2D animation in a 3D video game. At least in gameplay, the cutscenes rendered in-engine do look a little bizarre in motion, but honestly it just kinda adds to the humor.
You saved our lives. You kids are heroes.
Yeah, we're gonna tell everyone we were rescued by, Homer's kids, whose names are...
Bart and Lisa! Oh, I can't believe you forgot our names. You've known us our whole lives.
So, we're not thinking about you all the time, you know?
Good majority of the cutscenes here are traditionally animated like the show, and this is where you get to choose, do you want a crisp, modern-looking HD episode of The Simpsons? Go with the Xbox 360 and PS3 version. But if you want it to look like an early 2000s episode that you caught on TV right after a football game on Fox, PS2, and Wii is the way to go.
A moment of silence for the Super Taco.
That Super Taco was a little dry.
Going from the 6th to the 7th gen versions really made me remember just what it was like seeing games rendered in high definition for the first time. What a massive jump it was. Just with how sharp the characters and the environments now look, all the colors just pop.
This guy has a really textbook stomp.
There's a lot of flashier effects and explosions here at work, way more characters on screen that weren't present on PS2 and Wii to almost a comical degree. It's so strange. The old gen versions follow a lot of the same structure and level design, just with these sporadic changes here and there. Sometimes it'd be for what's clearly a technical limitation, other times seemingly for no reason. Playing the Wii and 360 version in tandem was a real test to spot the difference. There are entire levels that are untouched and almost one-to-one. And then suddenly, boom, there'll randomly be a different puzzle in the PS2 and Wii game, or a boss fight will just have the same exact setup and design, just with a slightly different solution. Like, for whatever reason, in the next-gen version, you can't attack in mid-air. I don't know why. You also have these character-specific timed power-ups that don't exist in the 6th-gen version for some reason. Like on Xbox 360 and PS3, you can turn into Robo-Bart or Clobber Girl Lisa and just one-shot enemies. And probably the biggest difference in the HD version is you get this huge hub world of Springfield. This is where you constantly run into different characters from the show, many of which have unique dialogue based on who you're controlling.
We've had a lot of adventures together, Bert. Have you seen any mole women around here, Lisa?
Careful not to have another heart attack.
Dude, your mom is so hot.
Just the amount of detail here for a licensed game is so impressive. On the PS2 and Wii, yeah, they can't do all that. So you just get the Simpsons house in their backyard, with some background visuals, I guess, to make up for it. So fascinating, too, because there are levels in the Xbox 360 and PS3 version that are directly ripped and remixing parts of the hub world. It's like you're directly clenching the bounds of the PS2 and Wii's limitations. Watching through the fence, horizons you can make out but can't explore.
Believe in yourself, boy, even if I don't! The Pro Bee has become the Pro Bird.
What really makes the PS3 and 360 versions so great is just the amount of shit they managed to cram on screen. Some of these sequences and boss fights get so chaotic with just how many NPCs are following you around. See, Marge's power in this game is corralling NPCs to join her in one big angry mob and attack and destroy enemies and buildings at her command.
There's a new Mac Daddy in town, a Mac Mommy.
Pretty cool mechanic that snowballs to letting you command like 30 to 40 Springfielders at a time. It gets nuts. You got a Legend of Selma fantasy spoof level where Homer and Marge are taking on her sisters as a two-headed dragon in this boss fight while you command an army of hobbits to protect the village. There's a Destroy All Humans Big Willie Unleashed level where you're running for dear life trying to stop Lard Lad from destroying Springfield. All this chaos that was making the 360 start to stutter had me wondering just how the PS2 and Wii were gonna keep up. And yeah, they really can't. You get mostly the same levels, just at the expense of some smaller sections and way less NPCs on screen. The core experience seems still intact, and that's kind of what matters.
Wait a sec. This is a manual for a video game set in Springfield. And Dad is a character! And so is Mom and Lisa. Who'd want to play her?
Lisa's actually pretty fun to play as. She has her sax attack, which lets you stun enemies and make them turn on each other. Her charge special lets you go full Tasmanian Devil in this really speedy crowd control move. And she has these psychic ability Buddha statue sections where she can move objects around to solve platforming puzzles. Even Maggie has her own little moments to shine, being Marge's Kazooie in these simple first-person sections where she could crawl into vents.
Oh my god, it's the mothership.
This must be the level boss for this part of the game.
The boss! Quick, everyone look busy.
The last half of this game just goes full balls to the wall ridiculous. Homer becomes super OP between his burps and big ball mode, and then also being able to switch to this big goo monster. He basically becomes the tank of the group. And if that weren't enough, you also get Helium Homer, which lets you hover up to different platforms. Bart's Glide gets a big upgrade and lasts much longer. Lisa can smite upon thee with her Hand of God and electrocute enemies, freeze them into blocks of ice, or just flick them away like little bugs.
Video games are about what's new, and the old is better off forgotten. Any of these fellows look familiar?
Wow, we look so pixely.
And poorly rendered.
Which one is supposed to be me?
Okay, spoilers for an almost 20-year-old game. So the last chunk of the game gives you this little hub world after you rescue a bunch of 8-bit versions of the Simpsons family from being destroyed, along with what's clearly a bunch of Simpsons NES game cartridges. Escape from Krusty Island, which isn't a game that actually exists, but it's clearly meant to harken back to the trilogy of Simpsons games on NES we got back in the early 90s.
Attention, Smooth Simpsons. We've been around this complex for a long time and bring a warning. Cowabunga.
One day, your video game, too, will be obsolete.
No way. The Simpsons game is awesome. Just because every video game up until now has been destroyed and forgotten doesn't mean ours will be.
It's a fun, endearing little meta moment musing on just how far video games have come on a technical level since then. And it was an especially nice touch considering the world of retro gaming and NES nostalgia was only beginning to hit its stride.
Save me, Billy Mitchell! My pixels are killing me.
But in 2007, even the oldest Simpsons NES game was only 16 years old, which means today, the Simpsons game is now years older than any of those NES games were when they were being made fun of.
The world I grew up in is gone.
Uh-oh, I sense some video game parodies coming on.
From here, that's where you get all these different parody and genre spoof levels. Military, fantasy, Grand Theft Auto, and Japanese.
Okay, I'm in a stupid Japanese game, but I'm not eating sushi. Unless it's covered with chocolate and there's no sushi in it.
That's where we come full circle and get Katamari Millhouse and also this really neat little Pokemon parody real quick. Look, again, it's 2007. Making fun of Japanese games for being weird was very in vogue and was considered harmless. Obviously, not everything is gonna age well. Lines like,
Sure, the Simpsons game is great with its unique upgradable character abilities and its hilarious self-referential cutscenes. But what about when the Xbox 720 comes out or the PlayStation 4?
well, I guess they were half right. Way to go and ruin all the fun, Microsoft. You're the reason why we still don't have giant robot fights like Real Steel said we would. So after hopping from genre to genre, the Simpsons start peeling back the layers of their own reality, slowly finding out they're not just characters in a video game, but characters in a licensed game that's just part of a larger entertainment franchise. And to get to the bottom of this, they finally come face to face with their own creator.
Seth MacFarlane?
Say hello to my little friends. Aw, snap!
That's right, you take on Matt Groening, who unleashes an army of Zoidbergs and Benders at you. And then after that, you build a ladder to the heavens, storm the pearly gates as the Simpsons family kills Shakespeare, Benjamin Franklin, and every enemy you've faced up to that point, until finally taking on the final boss, God himself.
You used to be cool.
Just because I'm a gamer doesn't mean I'm not cool. Your uneasy looks have brought my disfavor, you bunch of jerks.
And what do? You take on God in a game of DDR across all three major 7th gen consoles. The PlayStation, Exodus box, and genius.
God, I feel really super bad about all of this. And I seriously want to finish Oblivion so I can get started on something else, so what do you want?
And could you believe they managed to squeeze all that sheer insanity onto the PSP? This one's pretty much exactly the PS2 version as expected, just, you know, a lot choppier and lower res. When things got hectic, this game would struggle a bit on PS2. The PSP version feels like the frame rate is being held together by glue and popsicle sticks. The camera, as tradition, becomes an even bigger challenge with you having to be stationary and holding the left shoulder button to have full control. With a game with this much platforming and running around and enemies coming at you from all angles, it gets pretty annoying. And when it comes to the amount of characters on screen, PSP, your Marge army gets reduced from 40 to a mere 3 or 4. Still, graphically, the game looks fine enough here. Performance hit and all, this is one of those impressive, straightforward PSP ports. And with all these versions largely being the same, I think I'm feeling it's the perfect time for a quick graphics comparison. Now again, 360 and PS3 is gonna get you the sharpest iteration of this one. As far as I can tell, in both visuals and performance, PS3 and 360 are virtually the exact same, with some very slight color variants that could easily be chalked up to some capture quirk. If you had to choose between them, I'd say it's practically down to which controller you prefer. On Wii, there is the obvious visual downgrade, but you do get widescreen and 480p, and while obviously being a 7th gen console with 6th gen equivalent tech, it wouldn't have been the end of the world going with this one. The PS2 version, again, is largely the same, just with traditional controls and without progressive scan. There are some lower resolution textures and a bit of a performance hit here, but nothing too crazy. And yes, the PS2 port does in fact support widescreen, but since it's capped at 480i instead of 480p like on Wii, playing this in 4:3 on a traditional CRT just felt like the most natural way to go. PSP, as impressive as it is, ends up with these really low resolution textures. Comparing all of them, it's like progressing from max settings to some ultra low mod. But it's the core spirit across all versions that successfully stays intact. Now, as much as I wish we did get a Game Boy Advance version or a 2D beat-em-up in the same vein as the Simpsons arcade game, it sadly never happened. But we did get our last port, the Simpsons game on DS. You know, I thought I'd be completely burnt out by now after playing what's essentially the same game multiple times on different platforms, but no. The DS version perfectly translates the entire framework of the console game into 2D, and it's a really impressive feat. The story beats and level locations are all intact, a lot of the character mechanics are here, like Homer Ball and Bartman. There are some compromises, obviously, like Marge is still commanding a much smaller arsenal of NPCs, but with some more interesting reworks. Like getting to use them as a makeshift ladder or bridge. Even a good chunk of the voice lines are still here, too.
I will bring respect to the EA Corporation.
As for the cutscenes, they all make it on here, just with the caveat that they're now all in 3D. Even the ones that were traditionally animated in the console version are now in 3D. It's weird. Makes me think maybe all the cutscenes in the console game were originally animated in-engine as a contingency in case they weren't going to be able to get any of the 2D animated ones in time. And maybe they just decided to go ahead and use all those for the DS version. Maybe that was just easier to manipulate and compress onto a cartridge. And just like the Wii version, the Simpsons game on DS has its own unique references to its gimmick and ecosystem. You have this Nintendog-style minigame of Pet Homer, where you feed him junk food and give him the good old Heimlich maneuver with his stylus when he starts choking. The levels here all make use of both screens being designed very vertically. There's different touchscreen gimmicks and sections, like using Lisa's powers with a stylus. You can now drag Lisa onto different platforms. You can tap the NPCs now to command them as Marge. God himself is playing the Nintendo DS in the final boss fight. It's its own very impressive little touchscreen take on the Simpsons game, and it's way more polished than I thought it'd be. It manages to retain so much of the console experience.
Daddy, someone's looking at me.
So that's every version of the Simpsons game. Hilarious and metal licensed title filled with so many references and details that act as a bunch of neat little yellow time capsules to 2007 video game culture. Apparently there was some discussion and even potentially some early work done on a Simpsons game 2 before being cancelled, and I don't think there's enough time now before the Simpsons movie 2 for us to have the same kind of double whammy. Probably just more Fortnite collabs for now, but it's hard not to dream what could have been and what could be.
Not dreaming, not dreaming, not what? Damn it, I was dreaming!